What's up, guys? Ryan Milliken here at Hardway. We've got Tyler Bradley's Chevy 2 here. Some of you may or may not realize that this is my old car. My daughter walked in the shop the other day when I was telling the story to some people we had here, and her eyes got real big, and she's like, "Dad, this is your old car?" And yes, Faith, this is that car. So anyways, we did a round of updates on the car. We're gonna go over everything we did. It's Saturday morning. Did I say that already? It's Saturday morning. We meant to load up yesterday, Friday, but it rained all day yesterday. So we decided to call it an early day yesterday and load up this morning instead. So we're on our way to No Mercy. Tyler Bradley's going to debut. He's going to make his debut in X275 with the return of this car to X275. Obviously this time with a different color and a little bit of a different combo, and he'll be driving instead of me. So we're coming back to No Mercy as last year's No Mercy champions. With my Blue Nova. It's sitting over there in a sad state of affairs. But we won the race last year, ended up runner-up in points in X275, and we took this year off to focus on customers and friends' cars, so here we are. So this car was overhauled after its accident by Mickey Tessner out at Mickey's Chassis Works. Excellent fabricator. The car came in like a show car, and then went to modern and got wired. Then, we slammed it together to get it ready to go on the track. And it's been, what, 2 to 3 events, right? Yep. And we just haven't had a chance to get hands back on the car. And we used the big no time race we were at in Texas as the opportunity to get this car here. Once we've identified everything that we wanted to change before we took on a national, potential X275, championship, hopefully season. So going over the list of things we changed, the old nitrous setup on it was a mix of other manufacturers' solenoids. We really like our nitrous outlet stuff. We went from 4 solenoids down to 3. Instead of having 4 single basically entry solenoids that we were limited to an 093 jet, we went down to 3. Went to 1 big trash can, and we went to a fogger up here. So that's going to be our system that comes on right off the button. And then we have 2 other smaller solenoids. So this car is not flowing any more nitrous than my car was last year. It's just happening in a very different way. So the burn down tank and all this stuff. So these dudes sat up here like that. And we had this tank sitting in the front. So although it provided excellent crankcase ventilation, in the event of a engine failure / emergency, all the oil, engine fluids, whatever you want to call it, would come out of these vents right in front of the engine and on top of the engine. Obviously not what we want to happen. So the trunk lid's already on. What you can't see is a big box right here that has 2 big hoses coming to it. So in the event of an engine failure, it all comes to here. If it's got a spew somewhere, it comes out of this hole, gets on the racetrack. However, not under our tires. All right, so another round of small updates we did. The car was built, or rebuilt rather, with 2 nitrous bottle holders. We've only been using 1. We're not using enough nitrous to require both bottles. However, having both bottles in here, it gives us some weight ballast that we have to add anyways to make up for the how little the car weighs and what we need to weigh for race trim. And also we can change these bottles every other pass instead of every pass like we do in my car. So that's kind of a nice little level of convenience. Additionally, we have this bottle here, which we put bottled water in here. I've always been against water injection for the purposes of intercooling. However, we are going to try some water injection for the purposes of keeping the compressor outlet temp, specifically the longevity of the turbo, longer. So we have regulated 125 PSI air right here that comes to the top of the bottle. That's the same pressure that runs our air shifter, our parachutes, our wastegates, all that stuff. So it's not much volume whatsoever. Comes out the bottom here, so we have water sitting in here. And then I have a solenoid up front I'll show you guys. Oh, one other major update, not a major update. This is just something simple that Tyler asked for. Trans brake buttons on the steering wheel for racing purposes. There's a button here that didn't do anything, and he wanted that to be reverse. So he has his hand on the shifter, he can make it go backwards. So it's a simple update, but it's what he asked for. So you can press that button and go backwards. Now, it doesn't actually activate the whole race timers, and you can't use this as a trans brake on the start line, but it'll let you go backwards. So that's it for in here. Simple stuff. So this right here, air lines on top of the wastegate. Traditionally, we've just used the wastegates on spring only. However, with us needing more control of the turbos and what they're doing, we took spring out. Not all the springs, just instead of being like 35 or 40 PSI of spring, it's 20 to 25 PSI of spring now. And we're controlling the pressure on top of the gates here. So I don't have a bottom reference. I just let pressure off, but that little layer of control is added. You want to come over here and show our little water solenoid here? So this is meth heads. It's a solenoid from basically from the guys at Nitrous Outlet. And then there's the nozzle here is from, what is it called? ProMeth? ProMeth, which is buddies. Dave at Nitrous Outlet's buddies with these guys. So we've got a 25 gallon per minute nozzle right here that we're going to pulse on ever so slightly and put water in front of the turbo to hopefully cool the compressor outlet temp down to make the turbo, in theory, live longer. So the old injectors that were in this were the original injectors that we had in the car back in 2018. In S&S terminology, that's a 5550. So it's a 5500 flow rate nozzle with the Redman 50, which I think that translates to 50% of the body mods that you can do to a stock type injector. And then the injectors that we put in it are identical to the injectors that were in my Nova. However, they are the injectors out of the orange truck, because the injectors in the orange truck went out of with the engine from my car, and they're identical. So I took his in on trade and put them in this car. So we're gonna bring the other injectors just in case, but it runs pretty dang good with these injectors in it. This thing's got all the horsepower, all the capability, everything that my blue car did. It just gets there a different way. A little bit shorter wheelbase, a little bit lighter. We got to add more ballast to it, but I'm feeling pretty confident about this weekend. So we need a tuner to do his job, crew chief to do his job, and a driver to do his job, and maybe we can turn some wind lights on.
We're kicking that driver's ass.
Yeah. So lastly, something we did up here that, well, we had the intention of doing, it just didn't quite work out. We got these Motion Raceworks, they're called burn down connectors or burn down something or other, right?
Yeah.
So these are gonna go on the new valve cover, basically right here on both sides. So the reason we're doing a new valve cover is because it's carbon fiber, it's composite. You can't just weld the holes up and pretend those weren't there. So we're actually gonna put this valve cover up for sale. We have a new valve cover coming from Randy at Old School Fab that's gonna have these two guys installed. These lines are temporary. They're actually the lines off my car. So the way they flow and all that stuff is literally just to get us through this race this weekend. And these are also dash 10, right? 12. These are 12. And these are 16 like the rest of the lines. So after this weekend, we'll have two of these sitting side by side, and these with 16s will go to these connections instead. And the cool part about these is if you need to pull the valve cover off, you just pop it off like that, and it's got a cool setup like that. So we just didn't have enough time to do that on this round. We'll be able to ship that stuff to them. This valve cover will be for sale. Those lines can go in the trash or whatever. They're off my car.
Rick went back and forth about 5 times whether or not he was going to run this hose over or
Yeah.
under, and I was like, dude, it's only going to be...
As long as it connects from end to end, it's fine. It's fine. So
Just wait until I tell you that one of them bulkhead fitting, or one of these fittings on the firewall are a 45 and the other one's a 60. That'll really, really tear your head up.
for you radio guys out there, I know it sounds crazy. We have been switching all of our cars over to this Mickey Thompson radial front. It makes a huge difference in the way the car drives, the way the car looks. It's just an overall much better tire. It's a little heavier than the bias ply counterpart. It may confuse you because the size of this tire says it's a 26x6, but if you set this side by side on the ground compared to the 26 4.5 bias ply or even mounted, they are not any bigger of a tire. I don't know where the extra 1.5 inches comes from when in regards to the tire sizing. It's got to be something to do with the fact that it's a bias ply versus a radial or whatever. But if you're on the fence about these tires, they're awesome. So
It's like 5 1/4 wide.
yeah, and they don't, it says they're 1.5 inches wider, but they look identical in size to the bias plies.
me not paying attention between the bias ply and these, I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference physically by looking at them.
Yep.